to start incorporating a little bit more before and after. Yeah, some housekeeping. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Green Bay for me is about a 3.5 hour drive. I've been playing a lot of online lately. I'm conflicted on whether or not I should vlog that. I don't know. I mean, most of the time when I'm playing online, I'm watching TV while playing online. I could do a couple of vlogs where I'm solely playing online. And most of the time I'm playing WSOP. What's really funny about online play, especially on the WSOP Michigan app, I used to play 2.5 and 1.2 no limit, or PLO, pardon me, online. Just a decent amount. I always prefer to play live because I go with my reads. But I decided to switch it up. One of my students who plays on WSOP Michigan, and I won't mention any names because they have asked me not to, but one of my students said that they were crushing 25 cent, 50 cent. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, I'm crushing 25 cent, 50 cent. Like, people win $200-300 on a table. I was like, what? So I started checking it out. Oh my God. 25 cent, 50 cent PLO on WSOP Michigan. Every day I've won like $300 and not even playing that long. Probably playing like maybe 2 hours. I changed my mode or my style of playing on 25 cent, 50 cent. Maybe it's just because I have a larger bankroll. It probably has a little bit to do with it. Plus, it's also six-handed. But one of the things I just started doing is playing ultra aggressive online. And with 25 cent, 50 cent, the max buy-in's $50. So even if you got to fire in 3 or 4 bullets, it's only $150, $200. Basically the cost of fuel to get down to Green Bay and back, or maybe not anymore, but it's still like, I don't know, $70 to get to Green Bay and back. So at least the buy-in for 25 cent, 50 cent. But yeah, and they got like 15 to 20 players there every night. And if you're a 25 cent, 50 cent player and you've been playing on WSOP Michigan, and you're a subscriber, just give a little shout out, say hi, post your screen name on the comments. If you want me to post my screen name, I will. Should be pretty obvious. But in any case, yeah, so here we are heading down to Green Bay. And for those of you who live near a casino, congratulations, you're fortunate. For me, when I got to go play, like they have a game here 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, I got to make it worth my while. This game used to be in a bar, and the owner would close the bar down, and that game was off the hook. That game was always worth driving down to, always worth playing. It started off at a 125, max buy-in for 500. They were running 2 tables. And it ended up turning into a much bigger game, a 2-5-10. And then there was like just crazy stuff that was going on. And so it's now back down to like your normal, 2-5. Every once in a while somebody will straddle type game. In all seriousness, one of the biggest concerns you can ever have when you go to a home game is safety and security. The fact that the owner makes a decision that I can't record even though I'm a vlogger, I respect that. I don't know why, but I've been robbed at gunpoint at a home game. Yeah, so here we are on our way to Green Bay. We're probably about halfway there. And I'm trying to think how I'm going to play tonight. I don't know if I'm going to play like super aggro. Usually this is a tighter game. It really is player dependent. If the tight players are there, I'm going to play aggressive. What's the definition of aggressive? I had somebody reach out and asked, when you have 99XX, suited ace, or a rundown, are you always calling with those hands? Are you always raising with those hands? And my answer to that question, which was a very excellent question, by the way, was if I'm in a very tight table, I'm always raising with those hands. And if I'm on an average table or a loose table, it really depends on the stack size and the bet size. Hey, that's the danger of having a vlog, people. One, you put yourself out there, you let everybody know how you win, how you lose. Two, people get to start seeing your cards and your play, so they start making adjustments. You start telling people on the vlog what kind of reads signifies XYZ, so people will start faking those automatically. So then you gotta like read through the lines that you know what they know, that they know what you know. It gets complicated, but I'm looking forward to it. I did notice there were a few players last time I was in this Green Bay game that changed the way they play a little bit, based on some of the things I talked about in my vlog series on how to be profitable at low stakes spot limit Omaha. So, but yeah, I'm pretty pumped. I'm ready. I haven't played live in about a week. Okay, so here I am at the Green Bay game. We are actually 2 hours into this game, and yeah, the game is really, really well worth the drive. Sometimes on this game you get some tight players, sometimes you get some loose players. We actually have a really good mix here. We have two players who happen to be pretty tight, pretty nitty, so you always know where they're at. And then I think right now we're like 7-handed, we might be 8-handed, and then everybody else pretty much ready to gamble. So this ends up being a really good game for us. It's only been 2 hours. I was up $5,000 in the first hour. Right now I bought in for 1,000. Right now I'm at like $5,000. I hope I don't jinx myself because I'm up 4. And I did just lose a $2,000 pot. So I'm going to go over a couple of hands right now just for mid-game. So I committed myself and I announced at the table that I need to check raise at least 3 times this game. And the reason why is because I don't ever check raise in pot limit Omaha, or I very rarely do. And once upon a time, it was probably like a year ago, maybe it wasn't a year ago, maybe it was like 6 months ago, somebody check raised me. I was having a really bad night. I did some unprofessional things. I got up, stormed out, raged at them, left. And the next time I showed up, I immediately apologized to every single player. So now they're always giving me shit. Like the first hand in the game, somebody check raised me, and he's like, oh, I just wanted to see if I could give, the professor some shit. And so now it's kind of a funny joke because the amount of times that I've been unprofessional in the last, 10 to 15 years is maybe 3, maybe 4. Like, I'll poke somebody just to get under their skin, just so that way they donk off more chips. But very rarely will you ever see me berate a player, go off on a player, go off on a host, complain about their play style. Normally I just keep it all to myself. So the fact that those guys got to see that side of me literally for the first time in, like I said, maybe 10 years. I can't remember the last time I berated a player, but it's one of those things that doesn't happen very frequently. So let me go over some hand histories here. And the first hand we have, and I just announced to the table that I was committing myself to check raising at least 3 times. We're in the small blind, and there's 4 limpers, and the straddle's on. Now, this game started off with a straddle, a double straddle, and then sometimes a triple straddle. So most people are buying in for like 1,000, and it's a 2-5 straddle for 10, double straddle for 20, triple straddle for 40. And in this situation, we just had a regular straddle, and I'm in the small blind. Gets around to me. I look down at King 3-6 with double suited both spades and diamonds. So in the small blind, this is a nice premium hand, even though the 3-6 I don't like too much. I do like the fact that I'm double suited. I go ahead and make it $50. We end up getting 3 callers, so there's 165 in the pot, and the flop comes King 7-3 with 2 spades. So we absolutely smash this flop. I go ahead and check, especially since I just announced to the table that I'm planning on check raising at least 3 times. Checks around to the button, who decides to pot it for 165. I check pot, and he just says he's all in. And he's actually got me covered. At this point in time, I had 1245 in front of me. I beat him in the pot. He turns over 7-7. I don't remember what his other 2 cards were, but he flopped middle set. on a decently wet board with 2 spades. And so the fact that I had top set and a spade draw, we end up scooping that one. That one ends up being a pretty substantial pot. I mean, that right there puts us at about $3,000. Now, a couple more hands goes by, and like an orbit goes by, and for whatever reason, I'm just hitting everything. Small pots that are $200, I'm picking up. Small pots that are $300, I'm picking up. So I'm just basically playing my rush at this point. So I'm in the big blind, and I look down at deuce 4-5-5. Now this is not exactly a quality hand, but the double straddle is on, so it's 2, 5, 10, 20, 40. And at this point, I do have the largest amount of chips on the table. And there's 5 callers to the double straddler, who ends up deciding to raise it to $140. So yeah, there's a double straddle on for 20. I'm sorry, 2, 5, 10, 20. So yeah, he raises it pot to $140. A couple of people call, under the gun calls, cutoff calls. We're in the big blind. When I see this much action, I'm just like, okay, deuce 4-5-5. With diamond draw, I guess I'll call $140. Right now, I'm just kind of playing the rush. So we go 3 ways to the flop, and the flop comes 4, 5, 10 with 2 hearts. Now keep in mind, before the flop, I told the table, I'm like, hey, the guy who folded, who was the original straddler, not the double straddler, I said, I'm just going to show him my cards. I'm going to check dark since I'm first to act. And I said, just tell me if I need to check pot it. And so again, the flop comes 4, 5, 10 with 2 hearts. I check dark, checks all the way, essentially to the button, who, is actually the cutoff, but he bets 365. So we have a decision. We have second set. This is the reason why you don't like playing small pocket pairs like 5s. He has probably 1,800 in front of him, and there's 2 hearts out there. So I just check raise to 1,200. I'm like, you know what? If he's got a set of 10s, he's got a set of 10s. If he's got a heart draw, we can get it all in. If he's got ace deuce with hearts, I can never see him folding that, even with a gutter ball. If he's got ace deuce with hearts, I can't see him folding that. But he wasn't the original guy who raised pre-flop. So I check 1,200. We get one caller who only has $130 left behind. Now you can make some questionable things when he put in 140 pre-flop. Why didn't he just rip it all in there? I understand that. Keep in mind in PLO that doesn't necessarily always apply, but when there's that much action, I could see him doing that. But he calls for 130, and the guy who bet 365 turns over pocket aces and mucks. And so we're in good shape. Turn is an ace of hearts, so heart gets there. I'm like, oh boy, that's not good, because the guy who went all in happens to be one of the nits. And then the river is a jack of hearts. So then I look at him and I say, do you have hearts? I said, I've got a set of 5s. And he turns over 9, 10, jack X. So he flopped top pair. He might have flopped 2 pair, I'm not sure. He might have had like a dangling 4 or something like that with it, because that's a pretty, but also there's so much money in the pot, I could see him calling with just 1 pair, because I would make that call as well. The next hand we look at is King 3-7-7 with King high clubs. Again, I've only been here for 2 hours. I should be up 6,000. I'm up 4,000 right now. I'm just playing the wave, and I'm on the button. The straddle's on. Cutoff makes it so there's a bunch of limpers, and then the cutoff, the guy to my right, makes it 75. Well, King 3-7-7 with King high clubs, and I'm on the button, so button principle is going to apply here. I go ahead and call, even though I don't love the hand. Even on the button, I considered folding it, but again, I'm just playing the rush. So I go ahead and call. We go 6 ways to a flop. So there's literally $450 in the pot. And the flop comes King, Jack, 8, rainbow, complete rainbow. And it checks all the way around to me, and I'm like, well, Josh, if you're going to play this hand, you should just pot it right here. And I'm like, but I have a student at the table. I have 3 or 4 other people who've seen my videos. So I'm like, they're all expecting me to bet pot. This is where I'm going to put it into downshift a gear, and I just check back. So I check back, and the turn comes to 6 of diamonds. Now we have 2 diamonds out there. Now I'm thinking, well, if I wanted to bet pot on the flop,
I really can't bet pot on the turn because any diamond draw is gonna call. Plus the fact that there's a 6 and an 8 and a jack and a king, that's just a super, super wet board. I mean, 7, 9, 10, queen, all those combinations is out there. So they all check to me, and I reluctantly check. And it's a good thing I did because the river is an offsuit 3. So we have 3, 6, 8, jack, king on the board. It checks to me again, and I'm on the button. Now I have 2 pair. Now I feel there's no way anybody could have me beat. Somebody might have king 6, but not really. So I go ahead and I lead out for $140, and the first player goes into the tank a little bit. I say he's one of my students. He's only done 1 or 2 sessions with me, and we've texted back and forth on some hands. But he decides to check jam for 500 effective. And when it folds to me, it just seems like something's way off. I'm like, he's either got a set of 6s, and he literally checked it 3 times, and he's got me crushed, or he has complete air. So I snap call, and he turns over 9-9XX, and we end up scooping that. 2 hands later, again, this is just picking the right seat. I'm in the hijack, and I have 3, 4, 6, 6 with spades. Again, not a premium hand, but I am in good position. So there's no straddle on this time, so it's just 2-5. It gets around to me. I go ahead and make it 15. The cutoff, who is directly to my left, he's going to lean on me a little bit, so he 3-bets to 40. So it's like a double sweetener. In any case, this game is really good, so we go 6 ways to the flop. It goes call, 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 I call. There we go. We go 6 ways to the flop, and the flop is deuce, 6, 9 with 2 spades. So here I am. I flop middle set. I'm like, oh my God, middle set. I have a spade draw. I have a gutter ball, even though the gutter ball I don't like, because if a 5 comes out, somebody could have 7, 8. And it checks to middle position, who's to my right, and he just leads out for pot for $255. In this situation, I go ahead and flat because even though there's 2 spades out there and I do have spades, I want to find out if anybody else has any interest in this hand. So when I go ahead and flat, everybody else ends up folding. So we go heads up to the turn. And the turn is the deuce of clubs. So now we have middle full house, and the player who initially bet decides to go ahead and goes all in for about 550. Obviously, we snap call him. The only hand we lose to is quad deuces or 9s full. River ends up being a 7 of clubs, and we scoop. Villain says he had a complete wrap. So he said, oh, I rivered the nuts straight. My guess is he probably had a wrap, probably with a spade draw. And when the deuce came, he thought if I had a wrap, I'd end up mucking it, which is true. But unfortunately for him, we ended up having a full house. Now, the next hand I'm going to go over before I get back to the game, again, this is the one that I ended up losing, so there's a little foreshadowing. I look down at king, king, queen, 9, double suited, both with clubs and spades, and I'm in the big blind. And there's a straddle. The player under the gun immediately after the straddle decides to make it 25. Everybody limps to me. I look down at a premium hand, kings double suited. I go ahead and 3-bet to 175. The original razor calls and the button calls. The flop comes king 6 8 with 2 clubs. Again, just absolutely smash the flop. Like it just top set with second nut flush draw. And I look at the player who was the original razor, and I'm like, well, this could definitely be the third hand I'm going to check raise. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to lead out. So I lead out for 525. The original razor rips it all in for $850. Obviously, the guy on the button ends up mucking. We call. I tell him, I say, I really hope you have a set of 8s. He says no. He just has an ace-high flush draw. Turn comes an ace of diamonds, which I really like. River comes a 3 of clubs. So even though I had 2 clubs and he had 3 clubs, he turns over ace jack XX with 3 clubs in his hand, and we end up losing that one. Alrighty, so it's been 5 hours. I'm actually calling it a night right now. Just because I have a drive home, and to be able to play 5 hours versus all night and book a win's pretty good. So After the break, I get back. Very first hand I look down at is ace 10 10 8 with diamonds, with nut diamonds. And I'm in the cutoff, so I go ahead and make it 25. Everybody calls. So it's 175 in the pot, 7-way action. Somebody was using the bathroom. That person obviously didn't call. But had we given them the option, they probably would have, being that this game is super juicy. And so the flop comes king 6 deuce with 2 diamonds, and everybody checks to me. So I'm like, all right, I'll fire out 100. Keep in mind, I have ace 8 10 10 with nut diamonds. So I have the nut diamond draw. Obviously, I have a set draw, which you might think isn't really outs, but in my mind, I think it is. So I go ahead and bet 100. Small blind calls. Middle position, who in the past has been pretty aggressive, decides to check raise. And anytime you've got a really aggressive player who changes their strategy and check raises, always be cautious. But in any case, he check raises to like 575, and it gets back to me, and I'm just like, let's rip it. And we get the other player out, and he calls, and he turns over ace king queen 6. So he does have top 2 pair. We're all in effective for 1,015, so the pot's what, 2305. And yeah, the turn is an 8, which gives us more outs. So any 8, any 10, any diamond. There's 2 10s left, there's 3 8s left, so that's 5 outs by itself, plus 9 diamonds. Well, there's 8 diamonds that don't pair the board, so 13 outs on the turn. And the river is a 6. So we end up whiffing on that one. So very first hand when we get back, we blow $1,000, which really sucks, but I mean, first hour I was up 5 grand, so some of it's a little expected. But yeah, the next hand that I have, which is a very interesting one, is ace deuce deuce queen with nut hearts. It's double suited, it's hearts and diamonds. I raise to 15 pre. We end up getting 6 callers. And then this is the challenge when you have so many people who are calling versus 3-betting range and stuff like that. But the flop comes 3-3 deuce. And so we smash the flop. We have full house. We have bottom full house. But it checks to me. I go ahead and I lead for 50 because, 1, I've got a full house. 2, if anybody's got ace 3, they're probably going to raise. And yeah, you know, when you bet out, even if you have to bet fold, you're better off doing that than check calling, because bet folding, if you get raised, at least you have some information of where you're at. So I lead out for 50. Middle position raises to 150. So now I know who's got the 3, but surprise, surprise, the small blind calls for 150 as well. Now, if you're in this situation and you're on a good table, you know you have bottom full house, you know you have to dodge a lot, but you also know that they each have a 3, so they're not drawing the quads, and obviously they have 3 overs. So I make it 700. I'm like, let's go, boys. And at this point, I'm putting the guy who raised me probably on some kind of wrap draw, like 3 4 5 6, and the other guy, I'm putting him on ace 3. So the type of players that they are, I figured the only way he's got a 3 is if he's got ace 3 or a wrap, and he might have ace 3 or 3 with a wrap, like 3 4 5 6. So they both call. One guy's all in for 715. And all I'm thinking is, like, put a 9, a 10, a jack, a queen, or a king on the board, and I'm bombing the hell out of this. If they put a 4 or 5 6 or a 7, I'm slowing down. Well, the dealer puts out a 5. So I check, and it's a dead side pot, keep in mind. And the other player bets 1730 all in, and of course I muck, knowing that he's got 3 5. He turns over 3 5 4 8. So 3 4 5 8 at the right read. The other player who's all in turns over ace 3 jack 8, and the river comes a jack. So he ends up scooping it, but it's one of those situations where all of those ranges I was right. 9 through king, I felt really good about it. I played really good tonight. I'm in for 1,000, and I'm actually out for 3,500. Normally I'd play longer than 5 hours, but in this situation I get to drive back home and snuggle my wife, so that's a little bit more important to me than poker at the moment. If I was stuck, I would probably still be here. but locking in a win after having such a horrible experience, I shouldn't say horrible experience, but after playing bad, that's really what it was, playing bad in Detroit, feels really good because I know I'm a better player than that. And don't get me wrong, I know I got dumb lucky on a few hands, but I also know I played well. So that's about it for me, boys and girls. If you haven't, hit the like and subscribe button. Really appreciate that. It does help out the channel quite a bit. Go ahead and share my videos. And as always, everybody, play smart and run like a god.